Hello, and welcome to this video session on navigating the construction management process. If you can take a moment to read this disclaimer before we begin. Hi, my name's Emily, and I'll be presenting the session today. I'm the Housing Director for the San Francisco Community Land Trust, SFCLT. SFCLT was formed in 2003 to combat displacement pressures in San Francisco. Today, we own and steward 16 buildings with about 180 units of permanently affordable housing for either rent or limited equity ownership. Our properties are all located within San Francisco, and for the past 2 years, we've also been lending technical support to other CLTs and small developers across the Bay Area, including things like asset management, brokerage, and pro forma development support. This video is part of our technical support services. One caveat around the information provided is that it's based on our experience in San Francisco. So other counties, cities, or lenders may have different requirements. We hope that you use this video as a starting point to build vocabulary and a basic understanding, but then tailor this information to your own specific scenario. Today, we're going to learn about the distinct phases of a construction project. We'll review the objectives and deliverables of each phase. And as we go, we'll define common terms and abbreviations. Now, the term construction projects covers a vast range from new construction to large rehabilitation projects to smaller CapEx projects like roof replacements, exterior siding replacements, electrical upgrades, etc. So for the purpose of this session, we're going to focus specifically on a construction project that's being triggered by an acquisition of a property. For our scenario, we have an affordable housing provider that is looking to acquire a property using grants and loans from the local government. The lender expects the project sponsor to complete a rehab project upon acquisition to address deteriorated conditions at the property. The key players in this project are the project sponsor. This is the organization that initiates, owns, and is ultimately responsible for the rehab. The construction manager, or CM. This is the individual or firm managing the construction process. Some organizations may have an in-house CM, while others may choose to hire an outside third-party CM. For the purpose of our scenario, our construction manager is in-house. The other player is a lender construction rep, otherwise called a CR. Some lenders will have a construction rep who provides support and oversight to ensure project compliance. So with that scenario in mind, we'll look big picture at the entire life cycle of a rehab project. And then in the following slides, we'll break it down and go into more detail about each phase. So this rehab project is being triggered by the acquisition of a property that has deficiencies that need to be corrected. So the planning for this rehab project is going to start in tandem with the acquisition process. The acquisition phase is critical for laying a solid foundation for the project. This phase establishes the initial scope of work. It confirms the project feasibility, estimates the budget, and the project timeline. The second phase is the design phase. After acquiring the property, you now take the project from concept to permit ready, often with the support of design professionals. Then in the pre-construction phase, the construction contract is finalized. Relevant documents are gathered and submitted to receive approval to proceed with construction. The construction phase is where the project finally comes to life and the contractor executes the plan. This phase is full of coordination, administration, and oversight. After construction is complete, the project is documented and closed out administratively. This may include converting from a construction loan to a permanent financing. Post-construction, the cycle restarts, with annual projects focusing on the long-term care of the property. As new projects are identified, their life cycle starts back with the design phase. So project conception starts in the acquisition phase. During this phase, the construction manager is working in collaboration with the project sponsor and the realtor to assess potential sites through a construction lens and verify that the selected property and the proposed rehab aligns with the project sponsor's goals and the funds available. The construction manager will establish initial project assumptions with as much detail and foresight as possible in order to reduce unforeseen scope and cost in the future of the project. The acquisition phase has two main stages: the pre-contract stage, where the project sponsor identifies these sites and the CM provides a rough assessment, and then the contract and due diligence phase, which starts when a property has been selected and an offer has been accepted by the seller. Over the course of the due diligence phase, the CM will draft and refine a detailed scope of work for the rehab, put together an estimated project timeline, and an estimated cost of construction. At the end of the acquisition phase, the construction manager will have provided a final scope of work, timeline, and budget that are formalized within the loan documents. The acquisition phase starts with what we call pre-contract, before an offer has been made on a property. In this very early stage, the construction manager is performing initial due diligence on several potential properties in order to assess the overall property condition and set early rehab assumptions. This is a research stage that is critical for identifying all items to be included in the rehab project and for uncovering potential impacts on the budget, timeline, and design. The construction manager gathers information from the Department of Building Inspection. They'll search permit history, confirm that there are no open permits, and confirm there are no open complaints or violations on the property. The construction manager should have knowledge about local ordinances that might impact the project and need to be wrapped up in the rehab scope. For example, in San Francisco, some buildings have been identified as requiring a structural soft story retrofit, and some are identified as requiring a fire alarm system upgrade. These are just a few examples. The construction manager should be aware of these local ordinances and confirm if any will be triggered through the acquisition or by the rehab project itself. The construction manager will also conduct an initial site visit. This is a preliminary visit with the goals of identifying unpermitted alterations, understanding the rough building floor plan, taking a visual inventory of the major building systems, and making a visual assessment of the property conditions. After this initial research, the construction manager will provide the project sponsor with a rough scope of work and a basic budget to confirm whether the property needs align with the funds that will actually be available. If there is alignment, then the project sponsor may proceed with placing an offer on a property. Once you're in contract, the construction manager coordinates with the realtor, who engages vendors and consultants to prepare property inspection reports. The construction manager will review these reports and use them to refine the scope of work and inform more accurate cost assumptions. Some key reports that are typically required by lenders during the acquisition phase are a CNA with a 10 or a 20-year reserve analysis, a pest and wood-destroying organisms report, an environmental report, seismic or structural investigation and report, hazardous materials report, and then reports for the major building systems like the roof, the electrical system, the plumbing system. The construction manager may request additional consultants depending on the anticipated rehab scope. For example, if an ADU is planned, it's recommended to bring out an architect during due diligence to confirm that it can meet code requirements and to identify any other upgrades that may be triggered as a result of the ADU, like needing a new water meter or having to relocate existing windows. Typically, during this phase, the construction manager walks the site again, this time with a representative from the lender and possibly the other third-party vendors. After reviewing the reports and refining the scope of work, the construction manager will finalize estimates for the hard and soft costs and will ensure that the overall project budget still aligns with the available funds. An example cost estimate is illustrated here. Hard costs are the direct, tangible costs of construction, what it takes to physically build the project. This includes the cost of labor and materials, the contractor's overhead and profit, and contingency. Soft costs are the indirect, non-construction costs necessary to plan, permit, finance, manage, and deliver the project. This includes architectural and engineering design fees, permit fees, legal fees, insurance cost, relocation fees, etc. Having a knowledgeable construction manager at this phase is really critical for creating a comprehensive budget and anticipating the additional scope that might not be identified in the standard reports. For example, a CNA report may identify that the siding needs to be replaced, and it will provide a rough per square foot cost estimate. However, the CNA typically won't anticipate the cost of the scaffolding that will be required, or the cost of a special abatement contractor if there's lead paint or asbestos shingle siding. These consultant reports also won't include any soft costs associated with the work, like structural design fees, special inspection fees, permit fees, or the cost of as-built. And these consultant reports won't consider impact to the residents and relocation costs associated with the work. It's the construction manager's job to be thinking about these additional line items that need to be included in the budget. So after the comprehensive cost estimate has been created, there may be a need for several rounds of review and refinement in order to accommodate the financial limitations of the project. It's very common for the ideal scope of work to exceed what the project can actually afford. So the construction manager will go through the process of value engineering. And what I mean by this is value engineering is the process of analyzing and refining a project to find cost-effective alternatives without compromising quality, safety, and the priorities of the sponsor and lender. It happens at key milestones throughout a project life cycle, ideally when changes to the project will be least disruptive and most cost-effective. The acquisition phase is an ideal time to go through this process before the scope and the cost estimate is finalized. The construction scope should reflect the following set of priorities if value engineering is required. First is life safety. This is the highest priority. The project should prioritize work that includes the fire alarm system, sprinkler system, and means of egress, as well as addressing any seismic or structural concerns and remediating any hazardous conditions or materials. The second priority is the envelope, ensuring that the following are in an uncompromised condition without active water intrusion. The roof, the skylights, exterior windows and doors, siding, and security gates are also included in this priority. The third priority is accessibility, ensuring that accessible elements like stairs and handrails are code compliant and in good condition. The fourth priority is upgrading major systems and infrastructure, like the mechanical system, plumbing equipment, waste lines, and electrical lines. The fifth priority is finishes and fixtures. These include both the unit and common area finishes and fixtures. And finally, the sixth priority is other areas of concern, which may include lighting upgrades, security system upgrades, sidewalk repairs, and pest control. After the value engineering process, if the refined scope and the cost estimate still align with the sponsor goals and satisfy lender requirements, then the property purchase can move forward. And after the purchase has been completed and keys are in hand for the property, then the rehab project moves into the design phase. The design phase takes the project from concept all the way to permit ready. The purpose of this phase is to develop an accurate description of the scope of work, to obtain any required city permits, and to gather accurate and competitive bids. There are three main stages within the design phase: construction documents, securing building permits, and the bid stage. At the end of the design phase, the construction manager will have compiled a detailed bid package, will have approved building permits ready for construction, will have received competitive bids, and will be ready to award the contract. The first stage is to develop the construction documents. Construction documents form a comprehensive package that serve as a detailed guide for building a project and a means for obtaining the required approvals prior to construction. The construction documents, or CDs, typically include things like technical drawings, like floor plans, elevations, diagrams for different building systems. They also include specifications. These are written details describing the quality, the material type, the installation procedures. They also include other documents that are as applicable, like energy analysis, code compliance reports, and sustainability documentation. The CD package may also include a letter for priority permitting if the lender is in a position to facilitate an expedited permitting process. Typically, the construction manager will need to engage licensed professionals to develop these documents. If as-built drawings aren't available, the construction manager will need to engage a designer to prepare these drawings. As-builts are drawings, like floor plans and elevations, that show the existing layout of a building and a property. These drawings serve as the basis for any design work. If there's a structural element to the rehab, the construction manager will need to engage a licensed structural engineer. And if the scope includes accessibility design, a unit conversion, unit legalization, or an additional dwelling unit, an ADU, a licensed architect will be required, along with any third-party consultants that they may need to complete their permit package. Once the construction documents have been developed, the next stage is to secure the necessary permits. Building permits are permits for construction, typically issued by the local Department of Building Inspection. Depending on the scope of work, additional permits may be required from other departments, like the fire department, the Department of Public Works, and the Water Department. As mentioned on the last slide, check with the lender if they can provide a priority permit confirmation letter to help expedite the permitting process. Some permits may be issued over the counter, while others may require permit intake. Over-the-counter, or OTC, permits are typically for trade-specific work, like a roof replacement. These often don't need plans or diagrams, and they can be applied for directly by the chosen contractor and their subs before construction starts. Intake permits, on the other hand, typically are required for larger projects like unit conversions, additional dwelling units, and unit legalizations. Drawings must be submitted for formal review, and this process could take weeks, most likely months, for the review to be completed. This is where that priority letter is really important. Permitting requirements vary greatly by location, so your construction manager and any hired consultants should be familiar with local permitting process and the local code requirements. Once the construction documents are complete and your permits are approved, the project moves into the bid stage. There are aspects of this stage that will look different depending on your specific lender or funding source requirements. The construction manager is responsible for understanding the timeline and documents required for a fair and competitive bid process. First, the construction manager will prepare a bid package for issuance. Listed here are typical parts of the bid package. It often includes instructions to bidders, which include the date and time of mandatory bid walks, the bid due dates, and instructions for the formal submission package. The package will also include general conditions and the scope of work, construction documents, plans and specifications, a sample contract, and the insurance requirements for the project. Once the bid package has been compiled, it may be sent to the lender or any other required agency for review and approval. And when it's been approved, then the bid package can be sent to a pool of contractors. The construction manager should be aware of any project goals that need to be met, or if priority will be given to local businesses or small businesses. The construction manager may need to do extra outreach to new contractors in order to achieve these goals or priorities. It's typically required that the contractor should attend at least one site visit to inform their bids. Once all the bids have been received, the construction manager reviews them for completeness and compares them. The CM may ask the contractors to revise their bids or include missing scope in order to have a true apples-to-apples comparison. Typically, the contract is awarded to the lowest qualified bidder. If a different contractor is selected, there should be documentation supporting that decision. Congratulations! This is a milestone worth celebrating. A lot of effort has been poured into the project by this point. And from here, we can finally move into the pre-construction phase. The purpose of this phase is to finalize the construction contract, to gather all relevant documents, and to request and receive lender approval to proceed with construction. There are two main stages within the pre-construction phase: the construction contract and lender approval. At the end of the pre-construction phase, the construction manager will have a signed contract in place and will have written approval from the lender. The first stage is to prepare the construction contract. The CM compiles the documents that form the construction contract and sends the draft to the lender for review and approval. The construction contract typically contains the following: It typically has a detailed scope of work, often in the form of a schedule of values. This is a chart that breaks out the scope of work into line items by trade, scope, or by location. This breakdown helps ensure that the contract includes all work necessary to complete the project. Also, throughout construction, it's going to help the construction manager evaluate how much construction has been completed for each monthly application for payment. The contract should also include a project schedule with key dates like the anticipated start date, construction duration, and the anticipated completion date, any due date associated with the lender, and any key milestone and critical path tasks. For very complex projects, the contractor should provide a detailed schedule in Gantt form, showing start and end dates for each trade and area of work, particularly those areas that have an impact on the residents. The contract should also outline the payment terms. It should include the contract amount, outline the change order process and the application for payment process, and should identify terms around payment frequency and outline the required retainage amount and requirements for retainage release at the end of the project. The construction contract is typically prepared with the support and input of the contractor, but then a draft is sent to the lender for review and approval before the contract can be finalized and signed by the general contractor and the project sponsor. The construction contract is just one part of a greater approval process with the lender. This process allows the sponsor and the construction manager to double-check all pertinent items needed before construction and to confirm compliance with any loan requirements. A notice to proceed, or an NTP, is a checklist that can guide this process. In the case of our example for this session, the lender provided us with the notice to proceed checklist, and they must receive all these documents before they will provide written approval. A notice to proceed checklist typically includes the items that are listed here. The construction documents, including the set of plans, the scope of work, the signed construction contract, the schedule of values, copies of the contractor's insurance certificates and the owner's insurance certificates. And depending on the project type, there may be other documents required, like outlining the workforce requirements or documents that confirm the contractor's registration for compliance monitoring. And depending on the scope, the contractor may need to provide a dust control plan, a stormwater plan, or an egress plan. Again, these requirements vary depending on the size and type of project, the source of funds, and the associated restrictions. It's the construction manager's role to identify what's required and ensure compliance. Once you have written approval from your lender to proceed, then the project now moves into the construction phase. The purpose of this phase is simply to execute on the plan. This phase is full of coordination, administration, and oversight. There are three main stages of construction: the construction kickoff, construction administration, and the final site visit. At the end of this phase, the physical construction will be complete, and a final site visit will have been held with all relevant parties. Prior to actually breaking ground, there are several important tasks to complete in order to ensure a smooth start. The following is not comprehensive, but it offers examples of the setup process. It's important to hold a kickoff meeting with the construction manager, the project sponsor, the general contractor, any architect or engineer, and any other relevant parties in order to coordinate logistics on the work. In the past, I've had this meeting attended by a lender's construction rep and residents, It should be case by case. A kickoff meeting. You'll want to introduce the whole team, compile a directory with their emails and phone numbers, and establish responsibilities and communication protocols. You'll also review the scope and schedule in person. It sometimes helps to see exactly where the work is happening and identify what areas need to be prepared or cleaned in advance. The construction manager will provide keys if available and access information. They'll review the tenant notification requirements, review the change order process, confirm working hours and site protection requirements. They'll reiterate professionalism, smoking and music policies. Will identify on-site storage location for tools, materials, permit drawings, and job cards. They'll confirm lavatory facilities and parking locations. We'll confirm daily cleanup, disposal, and safety protocols. We'll confirm any items that are owner procured and when and where they need to be delivered. Confirm invoicing protocols. Hold a question and answer. In this meeting, it's important for the construction manager to take detailed notes and distribute them after the meeting for the record. In addition to the kickoff meeting, the construction manager will coordinate with property management to post notices to the residents. If any tenant relocation is required before construction starts, that coordination may happen now. The sponsor may engage a relocation consultant to manage the logistics, but the construction manager will need to coordinate with them on the move-out date and provide progress updates along the way. Based on feedback from the kickoff meeting, there may be areas of the site that need to be prepared in advance. For example, there may be items that need to be temporarily relocated in front or in the area of work, trash that may need to be hauled off, or temporary power that needs to be arranged for the contractor. Once construction is kicked off, it becomes a cycle of construction administration. The construction manager will visit the site frequently to document progress, confirm works being done in accordance with the construction documents, document any deviations from the plan, photograph the progress, and provide support with questions or logistics. Frequent site visits are valuable for keeping the project on track. The construction manager will manage applications for payment as they come in and will process any change orders. The CM will submit draw packages to the lender, if applicable. The GC will provide submittals to the construction manager for review and approval. A submittal is a document, a sample, or a data sheet provided by the contractor to be approved before materials are purchased or installed to ensure that they meet the project design, quality, and contractual requirements. Some examples of a submittal are carpet tile samples, paint samples, or range hood product data. As needed, the construction manager will facilitate consultants. There may be special inspectors or consultants needed to sign off on some of the work. There may be need for the architect or structural engineer to prepare sketches, answer questions, provide recommendations, and respond to unforeseen conditions. As changes are made throughout the construction process, the construction manager should maintain a record, compile sketches, notate changes on the plans, record meeting notes, and document major decisions. The CM will also coordinate with tenants and act as a liaison between the contractor and the tenants. They will prepare notices for posting, coordinate entry into units, and respond to tenant questions and concerns. Finally, the construction manager will frequently review the budget and schedule and push the project to stay on track. These tasks cycle through until construction completion, ensuring that the project moves forward as smoothly as possible. There are always unexpected conditions and unique situations that arise during construction, but the CM should be well equipped to navigate every issue with professionalism and creativity. When physical construction is 100% complete and the contractor has issued their final application for payment, the construction manager will coordinate a final site visit. The visit should be attended by the construction manager, the lender's construction representative, the project sponsor, and the general contractor. While not required, the CM may also invite someone from the asset management team, property management team, the architect, or other relevant consultants. The purpose of this site visit is to inspect the completion and the quality of the work and provide a basis of approval for the final application of payment and lender takeout, and to inform the final punch list, either by confirming items that have been completed or by adding new punch list items. With approval of completion from the lender, the project now moves into the completion and closeout phase. The purpose of this phase is to thoroughly document the completion of the project, to memorialize the project files, and to close out the project financing. These steps are important for future success, whether it's answering questions around past projects or following up on warranty issues in the future. There are two main stages within the completion phase: project completion and retention release conversion. At the end of this phase, the construction manager will have a recorded notice of completion, they'll have memorialized project documents, and they will have gathered the retention release requirements and any documents required for converting to permanent financing. To officially close out the project and reduce liability for the owner, the following items should be completed and documented. The first item is the punch list. This is a list of outstanding items prepared by the construction manager and/or the architect. It's recommended that you avoid reoccupancy of the unit until the punch list items have been completed. Second, the construction manager should ensure that all permits have been closed and the signed job cards have been turned over to the project sponsor. Next, the construction manager will prepare a certificate of substantial completion. This document indicates that the project is substantially complete and triggers the start of the warranty period. If there is an architect involved in the project, they will also be signing this document. Finally, the construction manager should prepare a notice of completion and have it recorded at the assessor recorder office. This document should be recorded within 15 days of substantial completion in order to reduce the lien period for the project. In tandem with preparing the project completion documents, there are additional items that must be compiled and reviewed by the lender. Retention release requirements are documents required by the lender before that 10% retention can be paid out to the contractor. And if the project is converting from a construction loan to permanent financing, then there will be additional items required by the lender. These are conversion requirements. There's a lot of overlap in the required documentation, so I've provided a combined list of the typical documents here. These include the final application for payment, lien releases, both conditional and unconditional for all applications for payment, copies of the pay apps and change orders, the certificate of substantial completion, recorded notice of completion, the final signed-off job cards, title endorsement, or proof that there are no liens on the property, project sponsor insurance certificates, an owner acknowledgement that they have received guarantees and warranties, the DBI permit search showing there are no open violations, a project directory, and as-built plans showing the constructed project. Regardless of the size and scope of a project, and whether there's a lender involved or not, it's a best practice to gather these documents for every construction project completed. The construction manager should share these documents with the project sponsor to memorialize the project for future reference. In addition to the listed documents, the construction manager should include photos from before, during, and after the project, meeting notes, and documentation around critical decisions. Once the project has been completely closed out, there are 3 recommended post-construction tasks that will ensure the project's success in the future. First, the CM should revise the CNA, the Capital Needs Assessment, to reflect the final scope of work that was completed in the rehab project, or work that was ultimately excluded from the project. The CNA is a guiding document for property maintenance over the next many years, so it's important to keep it updated as work is completed. Second, the CM should draft a scope of work that's broken down in a clear and simple way, organized by unit and area. This will provide valuable information for the property manager and the project sponsor in the future, especially if warranty repair requests come up. Finally, the project sponsor should schedule a walkthrough before the warranty expires to identify any deficiencies or issues before the warranty period ends. This isn't the end of construction on the property. Part of being a responsible property owner, especially in the affordable housing realm, is to commit to maintaining a property over the next several decades. So on an annual basis, site visits should be held to review the CNA and the existing property conditions and to prepare a scope of work for the next project that will be required at the property. This annual project will follow a similar life cycle as the rehab project, though on a smaller scale and a faster timeline. The CM will prepare the scope of work, request multiple competitive bids, and award to the lowest qualified bidder. A contract will be drafted and signed, and notice to proceed documents will be gathered. The CM will manage the construction, will gather all the completion documents at the end, and will provide support for managing repairs during the warranty period. This cycle will continue indefinitely in order to maintain a safe and healthy home for the tenants. That's the conclusion of our presentation. Thank you so much for joining. I know this has been a lot of information. I hope it's been informative, and I'm sure I've given you a lot to think about.